Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old competitive boulderer from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to the COMPCLIMB training series, where I record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So for today's episode, we are actually just going to be featuring one session of climbing. And it's a pretty action-packed session, so I was actually able to fill an entire episode of COMPCLIMB. And today's session is going to be our last day of training before the North American Cup coming up this weekend in a city called Canada near Ottawa. And it's going to be the last North American Cup of the season. So basically, once this day of training has concluded, all of our training for the whole North American Cup season this year will be in the books. And that's like a pretty notable milestone, as we have been training like intentionally for the North American Cups since we started like living in Montreal, even in just an Airbnb. So it's been quite a while now of like very focused and very intentional training. And as you can see today, we are being joined by Alex, who has been in a few videos now. So I think we're at the point now with Alex that I don't need to introduce him every time. But let's say this is the last time I'll introduce him as the head setter at La Crux Laval. And then going forward, the idea is that we just know who Alex is. But yeah, anyway, he's a friend of mine, and I was debating doing like a vlog style video for this session, because for anyone who has missed the previous couple vlogs that I did, I mentioned that my first thought was going to be that I'll usually try to film a vlog style video when we have a session with other people, so that you can really get to meet them, since through the format of the COMPCLIMB videos, obviously we don't really get to see or hear what Alex is thinking during this session. So I think I will usually try to do a vlog style video when we have guests during the session. But for today, the music was a bit loud in the gym. I don't have my mics set up yet, and a few of Alex's friends were also coming for the session, so a few things didn't really line up to do a vlog style video for today, but we'll try to get Alex in a vlog in the future, I think. And then another fun little fact about Ali is obviously he is the head setter at La Crux Laval, but he actually lives super close to BETA BLOC, and he does most of his like climbing and training here. So this is like almost like his home gym, and he's familiar with the boulders. I think a handful of the boulders that we're trying in today's session, he's already attempted. So we'll be having a session with him in his home gym. And then another fun fact, he is also, I think it's fair to say, not regular on the comp scene, but he's actually also going to take part in the North American Cup coming up this weekend. So basically this session is like both of our last little bit of comp preparation for this weekend. And my decision to come to BETA BLOC for this session was definitely very intentional. And that is because I mention a lot every time we come to this gym that the setting team here are a bunch of geniuses. And this gym is very much known for having some of the most creative movements on the boulders here, and just very, very not only well set boulders, but boulders that you've just never seen before, and moves that they basically just invent moves at this gym. And so the reason I wanted to come here as my last minute comp prep session was because it's just a really great gym to get your mind thinking critically about movement and really just activate all those beta pathways in your mind. And there's also a great variety of styles as well. We've got a lot of slab to choose from, lots of coordination and power. So it's a really good comp prep gym. And so you see that we have been trying this pretty epic white boulder in the steep for quite a bit now. I was able to get a nice send of it on, I think, my second or third try. And now the pressure is on Ali to follow up with another send. And so he was feeling the psych and the motivation, and he was looking pretty good on this attempt. He's opting for the left hand up to the finish, which I thought was a bit harder, but he almost made it work there. But the last move is like really big, and you're quite pumped when you get there. So it's probably a finish move crux, and he couldn't quite put that one down. And here we are moving on to this red boulder, and have a look at this thing. So this boulder looks absolutely legendary. This one looks super, super epic. We've got some really cool moves on this one. The first one, like the first move of this boulder, is this like superhero jump to this crimp, and it's like so hard to keep your left hand on the start sloper because it's just so bad. And this first move is like a really cool like levitation move. But listen, it's been really hot in Montreal already, and we're not even at the peak of summer. It's been like consistently around 33 degrees every day. And so this boulder was not super pleasant to be trying today in the intense heat. So Ali and I knew that after a couple tries, there was no chance that we were really going to be able to stick to the left-hand sloper. So I think the plan is with that one is to, after the North American Cup this weekend, I'm going to keep an eye out on my weather app for a nice cool day that lines up with the training day, and I will head on over to BETA BLOC and give that thing a nice proper projecting session, because it's a very epic boulder and I definitely want to try it. But even in the indoor climbing, I have to sort of scout out for the conditions. Otherwise, there's just no chance at that first move, I think. So we moved on from that one pretty quickly. And not only because it was hot, but also just because with this session, like I talk about a lot, it's just very important to be getting a good variety of movements under my system, like into my system and under my belt, to really have my body not be shock loaded with any foreign feeling movements on the comp weekend. So in theory, the more moves that I can actually expose my body to and get like the muscle memory really fresh in my mind and firing, then the more probability I will be able to execute those kind of moves in the comp, because I'll have done them. And so now here we are moving on to another boulder. Especially because there was a section being reset today, there actually weren't an overwhelming amount of like hard boulders to try today. So it meant that I had to basically get on all of the sixes up in the gym, at least the ones that weren't crimp lines, because crimp lines aren't necessarily the most optimal for me to be working on as comp prep. So anyway, that meant that I got on this boulder over in the left that maybe under normal circumstances, I would have thought was like a kind of just a okay looking boulder, like nothing special, and maybe wouldn't have prioritized it in a normal session of bouldering. But since I was like kind of forced to try it, obviously I went and did. And this one actually turned out to be like a super hidden gem. Like this boulder is actually really cool. Like at first glance, it sort of looks like it's just some basic movements on some pinches, but actually there's like so much intricacy into how these moves actually operate. For example, you really have to go left hand to this right pinch and then come in to the left pinch as a right hand undercling, which is like not a very intuitive sequence. And the other element that's hard on this boulder are these little footholds that I'm stepping on with my left. They're like the cheetah spikes with dual techs around the outside. And so it makes for like this really tricky tensiony move. And these holds are like perfectly bad that it also forces this cool pinch flip move at the end. Anyway, there were like so many cool intricate movements packed on like this little 6 on the little wall kind of off in the corner. And that's just what I mean about like the qualities of the setting here at BETA BLOC. There just really are no throwaway boulders, and even on like a less exciting set of holds and a less exciting wall angle, they make something like really special and even like really creative and unorthodox. So I'm just always having to think critically when I'm having my sessions here at BETA BLOC. And so we are going to be moving on to a boulder now that was basically the opposite of that one. And this one was like an A-list boulder for this session. This is one of the boulders that you walk into and you see up in the gym and you say, okay, well, obviously I'm getting on this one in the session, especially as a comp preparation session. Of course, this boulder would be absolutely perfect. So now look at Ali on this move. This guy is incredibly good at slab. I don't know if I've mentioned that yet in our other videos, and there's no need to either. It is just very self-explanatory, especially when we were climbing at the crux. He was really good on the slabs. But he's able to do this lâché move and just stop on the volumes. And listen, these volumes are really bad. Like I've been talking about how I've really been loving the Tomoas for volume smearing, just in general. But even the Tomoas weren't really vibing with these volumes, and I couldn't do the stop method like he did. It was actually crazy how he did that. So I had to opt for what looks like the intended sort of step through pincer sequence. And actually a fun fact about this boulder. So my attempt on this boulder here is going to be the second attempt that I focus on something. So basically this is going to be the Sengo, but this is only the second try that I looked at the end foothold that I was going to end up on. So when I was hanging on that jug right before the lâché, I actually took a second to deliberately look at all of my foothold targets. So I looked at both the volumes and I made eye contact with the last little foothold. And this was actually a previous tip of the day of mine, and it was very important to implement it on this move here to give my body more coordination. And speaking of tips of the days, this boulder that we're hopping on right now also features a pretty niche one that I've been finding myself running into a lot recently. So for today's tip of the day, we're going to be talking about what is, in my opinion, the best way to position your hand and your grip in regards to pressing with your thumb off of some really small holds. So this move has actually been kind of at the forefront of my mind. I've just found myself running into this move quite often, a lot on the slabs I've been doing recently. And we're going to be talking about the specific situation in where you have a hold that you can only press off with your thumb, and the hold is too slopey to actually be able to crimp it, or to use what is called like, some people call it the lobster claw grip, some people call it the lighter grip, but that's actually a tip of the day for another video that we'll get to. But in this scenario, the hold is too bad to lobster claw or crimp, so we can really only press off of it on our thumb. So recently, when I've been encountering this move, I've been having a lot of difficulty deciding whether or not I want to kind of place my thumb on the hold and have like a little bit of my pointer finger on, or maybe even try to crimp it even though it's not very optimal. I've been playing around with the grip types, and every single time when we're in this situation, I've been finding that when I open up my hand, spread out my hand, and almost kind of let my thumb like really stretch and almost you use sort of like the ligaments more, and I'm not really engaging my thumb. I'm just letting the natural stretch open, like my hand open up while I press off of it, as we can see in this picture. And I've been finding the most stability and strength in this position, rather than really trying to fiddle around with a crimp or a pointer finger or any sort of other combination. And I like to caveat a lot of my tips of the days with the idea that, I don't know everything about climbing, and especially like the little variations of every different move are going to be different. So usually I'm going to be telling you with my tips of the days that my advice is not the right advice. It's just food for thought and, my opinion. And this case is also like an exaggerated version of that. So this is sort of something I've been only really playing around with recently, or at least it's been at the forefront of my mind recently. So like really just take this as food for thought. There's definitely probably some ways that you can find like a better grip or something that works better for you. But I just like you to think about this as a tool you can add to your toolkit. So basically, if you find yourself on a slab, you run into a hold that's really slopey and you can only really press off it with your thumb, consider opening your hand and just letting your thumb stretch and relax. And I've been finding a lot of power in that position. So yeah, just keep that in mind with your thumb pressing on slab. And so this tip of the day, I end up using a couple times on this boulder. First, I use it to walk up this right foot, like you just saw me do. And then later on, I also realize I have to use it for this ending sequence. But anyway, let's focus on my flash go of this boulder. I was really, really trying to make the most of my flash go because Ali and Maddie were challenging me to really try and flash this boulder. So I was happy with my progress so far. I felt like I got pretty high in the boulder, and the finished crimp is like temptingly good looking. So I kind of just wanted to step up and jump to the finish, which I actually think would go. I actually felt pretty close to it on that attempt. I just maybe didn't have enough purchase on my my left foot to get a good jump off. But actually, I bet if I tried that method again, it might have worked. But anyway, we end up finding a better sequence to do the ending, and probably what was by design. And so we discover, well, actually not yet. First, I'm thinking about whether or not I have to try and come into this side pull with the right hand in order to stand up. But it's like really slopey and weird to come into it. And then Ali ends up finding the more optimal sequence here. Or maybe not on this try, but he finds it later. And yeah, he'll find it on this attempt here, I think. And this is the second instance of using our like open-handed thumb press move. You can see he's also putting it to use and kind of like opening his hand and letting his thumb stretch really widely. And then check out poor Ali here. He went up for this finish hold. And at first we thought he like really tweaked himself up badly or like broke something even, because he looked like he was in a lot of pain, which he was. But luckily it turned out to just be like a hip cramp or something. He said he just had like the worst cramp of his life going up for that finish hold. He like loaded his right hip really weirdly. And thankfully he is okay, and it's not a serious injury. It was just a cramp, he thinks. And it's especially good because, like I said, his plan is to compete this weekend, so he doesn't want to be getting injured right now. And so anyway, let's check out this next boulder. This next boulder features like the highlight of the session for me, in my opinion. Check out this move here. I am pretty proud for coming up with this little sequence. So I'm going to jump into a one-arm mantle and then hold this position to get the foot out. So I've actually only done this move once before in my life. And it was a couple years ago. Maddie and I were traveling through a handful of countries in Europe. And at one point we were in the Czech Republic and we were climbing at Adam Ondra's gym. And there was a move that the only way I could figure out a sequence was to do basically that exact same thing, to jump into this one-arm mantle to work a foot over to the left and then continue on. And so my one experience of having done that before carried through to today, and I was able to make it work on this one. Ali found what looked like a better sequence through that to actually make use of the gray volume. But in theory, if that gray volume was just like a little foot chip, I think my method might actually be forced on that move, which would be cool. Because I definitely think this is a move that can be forced. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day it starts to be really trendy. I could see the World Cup setters really liking this move and liking to like plaster it all over their boulders, because it's quite visually striking, I think. And it's a lot of fun when you execute it. But anyway, to wrap up the session, we came up with a little challenge to do this 3-tag with no hands. And yeah, this is going to end up being the last boulder of our session today. And so yeah, it was a good last minute comp prep session for Ali and I. At the time this video is coming out, the event should have already concluded. And I don't know if it's going to be streamed or not, but if it is, I'll link the streams in the description. And then you can expect the next episode coming up to be my recap of the last North American Cup of the season. So yeah, you should definitely look forward to that. Insert catchy video outro here.